Hi everybody, so today's lesson is going to be for Wednesday, May 13th. We're getting closer to the end of the unit and the end of the school year, so you can do it. Keep pushing through. You don't have a bell ringer, actually you do have a bell ringer today, sorry. You do have a bell ringer today. We're actually going to finish the bell ringers up for May tomorrow, so you have one today and then you have one tomorrow. 2 questions, super easy. Make sure to answer that question and then you can turn in your bell ringers on Friday. So after your bell ringer, we're going to do slides 49 through 51, 2 writing slides, 1 picture slide. First, let's recap the last things that we've talked about, and it was major. It was major. The Berlin Wall has fallen. The Soviet Union is collapsing within itself. Freedom for certain Soviet satellite states. And we're going to talk about some today who did not actually receive their freedom. Of course, it's going to be very, very difficult because you have to fight for that freedom. In certain locations, we know that Gorbachev pulled troops and we aren't focusing on those areas anymore because, you know, your economy is collapsing. So that's what the leaders of the Soviet Union wanted to focus on. But so those areas where the troops were pulled, it's going to be a little bit easier. But some countries or some satellite states are not going to have that easy of a time. So the Soviet Union is collapsing. Gorbachev loses his power over the Soviet Union. So once there is no more Soviet Union anymore, you really just have, you know, the Russian Federation, which is just present day Russia, which is what we have today. So we looked at this map right here. You know, that's all of the Soviet Union's control. And then once the Soviet Union collapses, we lose those satellite states and it's just Russia. That's what we've been waiting for a very long time. So we're doing, like I said, slides 49 through 51 today, and we're still going to focus on some economic changes. So we also know that since Khrushchev and after Khrushchev, you know, he starts to implement, or the country starts to implement more capitalist ideals. And so we have Nikita Khrushchev, then we have Mikhail Gorbachev implementing capitalist ideals because having a full communist country doesn't work, and we're realizing that their economy is failing. And we also talked about, you know, if you want to have a successful economy, you have to have the consumers set the demand. You know, what's the point in mass producing all of these goods and then us as the consumers, we don't want them, so we're not buying them, and then those goods just sit there, right? So they don't have that because the government tells them how much to produce. So that's a key difference in a capitalist economy. We set the demand, and then manufacturers, companies, they make that, and then we purchase it and they make money. There it is. All the economic problems solved. Just kidding. All right, so slide 49, economic changes. When the Soviet Union came to an end, the Soviet republics also started to gain their independence and then change their economic systems at the same time. So a lot of these satellite states didn't have a choice in the first place. When Russia, or at that time, it was Joseph Stalin, started just taking over all these areas, it was like, you're going to be communist, you're going to be communist. And it was like, what? No, we don't want that. So communism starts to fall as well. Remember, when the Berlin Wall fell, you know, that represented just more than just like a physical wall. That was a barrier between, you know, capitalism and democracy and freedom and dictatorship. And so when that fell, we're starting to realize, like, okay, communism is also falling. In Russia, the largest republic, Boris Yeltsin, remember that? Boris Yeltsin began a massive campaign to alter the economy's basic structure. His goal was to make the economy function more like a capitalist system. So Boris Yeltsin wanted to overthrow Gorbachev because he was like, this man doesn't know what he's doing. And so he wanted to overthrow Gorbachev. Well, when the Soviet Union was gone and it was just Russia, that left Boris Yeltsin in charge of Russia. So they don't have control of these satellite states except for a couple that directly border Russia. It's easier to keep control of those. So we have Boris Yeltsin in charge of the Russian Federation, or just Russia. Under the new market reforms, Yeltsin began to allow private ownership of businesses. What? Imagine you owning your own business in Russia? This is what we mean. Like, in the United States, we're sitting there like, who is this? This is not Russia. This is not the Russia that we know. They don't act like this. What's going on? So again, because communism doesn't work for very long by itself. It doesn't work. So you have to implement capitalist ideals. So it's starting to have people own their own businesses and land. People can own their own land in Russia? Oh my God, that's crazy. Business owners and workers receive more freedom and take advantage of economic opportunity. Freedom? People in Russia know that word? Crazy. In return, they lost the guarantee of government-backed job and other government supports. So because the government isn't controlling you, obviously they can't always be there to protect you. So it's like, are you willing to do that? Do you want to have the government just control you and end your business and tell you what to produce and when to produce it? Or do you want to have total freedom and risk that they can't help you? You know, just in case, like if you get in trouble or something, they can't help you because they don't control you. Which is, I mean, we do that. You don't really open a business and be like, man, I really hope the government can help me when I need it, because you hope to succeed by yourself. Like that's kind of just an idea that we have in this country because that's what we do. But it's different for the people in Russia because they've never had that before, so they don't know what that's like. In return, early results of Russia's reforms were mixed. Prices rose sharply and many Russians could not afford to buy goods in the stores. So because they are all by themselves now, a lot of the time, like, the business owners set the prices really high so that they could make money right away. And so when people would purchase those goods, they're purchasing at a high price, and then that's making money for the businesses. But when the prices are too high, and these are like goods that you need to buy often, you know, I'm not going to keep going back and I'm not going to keep buying these things because the prices are ridiculously high. Demand. We also set the prices here in this country as well. You know, like how much are you willing to pay for a product? Like if the iPhone comes out and it's like $2,000 or something, sorry, no, I'm not going to buy it. I will keep this phone until my phone dies. You know, the companies need to set that price based on how many people are going to buy it and what we are willing to buy it, based on like our cost of living and standard of living and things. You know, how much do we have in our pockets to pay for that? By the early 2000s, Russia had rebounded somewhat from the economic crisis that came with market reform. The path from communism to capitalism was not easy. Indeed, it is not very easy. So we're the Soviet Union, or the former Soviet Union, and just Russia now, they're experiencing lots of economic changes, and they're trying to really fix the economy that was broken, so much so because of the Soviet Union's ideas on communism and the harsh structure and the intense structure that they had for communism during those years of being the Soviet Union. So they're going through some changes for sure. Other issues. I feel like I should have renamed this a different slide because this one's, sorry, there's a hair. This one's really, 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 really intense. So I'm gonna look into changing the title of that slide for sure. So other issues, even though this was really serious here. After the Soviet Union fell, underlying issues in the region surfaced. Two of these issues were ethnic unrest and the need for new governments. We know that the satellite states are gonna look to gain their independence and do that successfully by creating a new government and like having a constitution, having a set of laws, something that the people something that the people approve of, and that's going to be very difficult. We know this from talking about our revolution unit, because you can fight for freedom all you want, but if you don't have a successful plan at the end, then it's not going to be worth it. So one example of ethnic unrest took place in Chechnya, an area in the Caucasus region of southwestern Russia. This place borders Russia. Unlike the republics that had broken away from the Soviet Union, Chechnya was considered part of Russia, and Russia was not going to give that up. Like I said, areas that border Russia itself, like physically, that's going to be easier for Russia to control, and they are not going to give it up. And so Chechnya and the Ukraine are two of the areas that Russia refuses to give up. When the Chechens tried to gain their independence from Russia, the dispute eventually led to bloody fighting and to an insurgency that still affects the region today. Unfortunately, part of the ethnic unrest is, again, one, their fight for independence from Russia, but two, the Russian government, even up until today, and I believe there was some news, because we don't get honest news from Russia or like China or anything, like those communist countries, or like North Korea, the fascist countries. We don't get true news from them. But a few years ago, a reporter like broke the news and said that Russia is targeting and either arresting, torturing, and trying to convert homosexuals. So like if you are gay living in Chechnya or in Russia, you are either arrested, tortured, or trying to like convert you to not be gay anymore. So there are no equal rights for people who are gay in Russia, and in Chechnya, because they can't, and they still don't have their independence. There's like this huge like raid on just gay people, and they don't have rights. like they do in the United States. I'm not saying like we live in a place with like no discrimination and stuff, but like we're not targeting them. We don't arrest them and stuff. Like, I mean, this is really bad. This is really bad. And there are protests against that in Russia, but you can protest all you want against a dictator and he's not going to change. So, and that's in recent history. This happened a few years ago. So, and that's in Chechnya. So it's them fighting for their independence and also just like having equal rights and equal treatment for like the LGBTQ community and just having equal rights in general for the people. They still can't achieve that. So that is in Chechnya. The Ukraine. For some of the former republics, again, the transition from communism to a new government has been challenging. When we've talked about the Ukraine a lot, actually, I'm pretty sure there was one time during the school year, I was looking at a map and I was showing you Russia and I looked at the Ukraine and I was like, remember this because this is going to be really intense later on. The Ukraine is really difficult. It's really tricky because they wanted to be free, obviously from Russia, but Russia will not give them up. Like they refuse to give up the Ukraine. And in 2004, they had an election that was a little bit shisty because imagine like, hello, you're a brand new country and you might not know how to run an election, right? So we kind of called them out on that. And we were like, you need to hold fair and free elections if you're going to be free. And if you want our help, you better do this right. So actually I had a friend in high school who she came in, I think, our sophomore year, and she was from the Ukraine. Like, her family literally fled because of the conflict. And, like, basically the people of the Ukraine physically fighting against Russia. And in recent history, like in 2019, right, we have, I think there was, oh man, I don't even want to say the number. I can't remember. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people have died through this war between Russia and the Ukraine because they're trying to fight for their independence, right? So, like, and I said the number in class and I just can't remember what it was. There's so many like numbers in my head to remember here, but thousands and thousands of people have died from this war with the Ukraine trying to fight for their independence. They're kind of independent. Like, they have a president today. And if you remember that, actually President Trump's phone call with the president of the Ukraine kind of led to his impeachment and the questioning of, did he abuse his power? So that's, the Ukraine is really, like, they're independent, but Russia is not letting them go. So it's almost like they have their own government, they have their own president, but Russia's like, yeah, did you forget that we still control you? And the people of Ukraine are like, no, you don't. Like, you definitely don't control us. We're free. And Russia's like, no, you're not. Like, we still control you. So they're having a war still about that. And it's heartbreaking, like Russia just like won't let them go. And they've been doing this, since the Soviet Union fell. So it sucks. It really does suck. This picture right here, this one right here is people fleeing war, basically a war-torn country, which is the Ukraine. And like I said, my friend and her family from high school like had to literally flee because of the conflicts, right? Like it's crazy. It's crazy. These are the protests that I was talking about like the fight for equal rights in Chechnya. Their colors are orange. Like, imagine, how we have like the pride flag, which is like a rainbow, for those kind of protests and things, like, hey, treat us fairly, treat us equally. Well, like, hello, those are protests. Like, get your attention. So like, these people were like, hey, we're going to use orange. Can you please treat us fair? Can you treat us equally, to get people's attention? And it's just like when you think of like LGBTQ, you think of like the pride flag or something. So like, same thing here. They're just going to use orange. We have I believe he is like part of the he's obviously part of the military, but I think he was put in charge of Chechnya because, again, like Vladimir Putin and the leaders of Russia were just like, yeah, no, you aren't free or independent. So we kind of have a strong military presence in these countries because militaries are used to scare people. And if you want people to listen to you, then send in the military, right, as a threat. So there's that. It's rough, and these countries are still fighting for their freedom and just to have equal rights from Russia because, again, Russia doesn't really know what that is. They don't know what those words mean, equal rights. Sorry, they've never heard of that before. Okay, so don't forget your summaries for those slides there, and don't forget to answer the bell ringer question. All right? Bye, guys.